Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The end of the prophethood. By the time of the conquest of Mecca, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about 60 years old, an old man by the standards of his time. Through his sayings and the continuing revelations of the Quran, the tenets of Islam had been formalized, covering everything from articles of belief to instructions for worship to guidelines for Islamic governance. A new social order had been inaugurated, one that left behind tribalism and nationalism in favor of Islamic unity under divine laws. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam codified this in his last sermon, where he declared that you are descended from Adam, and Adam alayhi salam was created from dirt. The most noble in the sight of God is the most pious. No Arab is superior to a non Arab except by their God consciousness. His religious and social message was intertwined with the peninsula, the first time in history that all the Arabs had been united. He even managed to make some inroads among the tribes living on the southern edges of the Byzantine and Persian empires, an accomplishment that would not go unnoticed by those two great empires who would soon take the rapid spread of Islam very seriously. After his conquest of Mecca, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned to his adopted hometown of Medina. He had, after all, promised to lead the Muslim Ummah from that oasis 8 years earlier when Aus and Hazraj invited him. Here he began to make preparations for a Muslim community that would continue long after his death. He spoke increasingly about the obligations of a true believer, the preservation of the Quran and his example. In early 632, he journeyed to Makkah for a final pilgrimage, the Hajj. He spoke to thousands of his followers, all equally dressed in a simple white robes regardless of their financial status, reminding them of the equality of all people. He cautioned his followers to avoid oppression, treat equality of all people, reminding them of the equality of all people. He cautioned his followers to avoid oppression, treat women with respect and love, and leave behind the old tribal rivalries that had been the bane of Arab civilization for centuries. His farewell sermon summarized his prophethood. It was a complete revolution in every sense. In the eyes of his followers, a new order was dawning upon the world, one that would be based upon God's law and inspired by the example of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After the pilgrimage, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned to Medina, where the foundation was laid for the continued expansion of Islam. Learned men were sent to distant provinces such as Yemen and the eastern edge of Arabia to teach the recently converted the basics of Islam. Medina, the community in closest contact with the Prophet, would operate as a hub of knowledge about Islam, serving to educate the rest of the Muslim world. Even after the Prophet a military expedition was prepared to trek north against the Byzantines. The Islamic ethics of war, which would guide hundreds of years of Muslim armies, were reiterated. According to Islamic belief, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam role was to serve as a messenger of God, delivering God's word, the Quran, and acting as a model for Muslims. After 23 years of acting as a prophet of God, his mission was complete. The more importantly, the Quran was finalized and recorded on scraps of parchment, leather, and bone, but more importantly, memorized completely by many of the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam companions. The pre-Islamic tradition of memorizing long poems gave the Arabs the ability to maintain and ensure the preservation of Islam's holy book. Narrations of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam actions and sayings were also given due importance and spread throughout Arabia by word of mouth. According to Islamic tradition, one of the final verses of the Quran revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam stated, "Today I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you and have approved for you Islam as your religion." Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam fell ill in the early summer of 632. He experienced sorry, debilitating headaches and a fever and was soon unable to walk without the help of his cousin Ali and his uncle Abbas anhum. When he was unable to lead the 5 daily prayers in the mosque, he appointed his close friend and companion Abu Bakr to lead them in his place. He spent his final days in the house of his wife Aisha, the daughter of Abu Bakr. From a wall adjoining the home to the mosque, he was able to watch the Muslim community follow his instructions to worship God even in his absence. It was no doubt an emotional time for his followers who had been with him through the difficult days in Mecca, the fierce battles against Quraysh, where he established his authority, and his triumphant, bloodless conquest of Mecca. They had looked to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for guidance and leadership in all aspects of life. His increasing talk of death and the fact that he was now unable to even rise up to lead them in prayer played heavily on the hearts of the Muslim community. His final days were spent resting in his home with his head in the lap of his wife Aisha. Close family members and friends visited, hoping to see some signs of recovery in their leader, but one of the central aspects of Islam was uncompromising monotheism. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam preached that only God is divine. All other creatures, whether they were animals, humans, or even angels, would experience death according to Islamic belief. Thus, while they were prepared for his passing, recognizing that Islam would indeed continue after him, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam followers deeply emotionally invested in this man that had led them out of the era of pre-Islamic polytheism and tribal warfare could not imagine life without him. On 632, with his head on Aisha's lap, Aisha Anhu lap, and his followers gathered in the mosque hoping to hear of his recovery. The first era of Islamic history, spanning the 23 years of prophethood, ended as the Prophet Muhammad breathed his last.